It's Sunday, September 16th, 2018, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today, we're joined by one of our mentors, Jordan Bergtraum, to lead a talk on how to protect your roadmap from derailment by influential clients. It's going to be a great talk today. A lot of great people are joining us. And just let me briefly explain the format for those of you who may be joining us for the first time today. Along the bottom of your screen here, in this area, you see mentors and mentees from the current session of the Product Mentor. And the Product Mentor is a global program where we pair up mentors and mentees from all around the world to help make better product people, better product decisions, and, once in a while, better products along the way. So let me just kind of get everything started. We'll just kind of quickly go around the room, and we should be able to do this pretty quickly. Everyone, we're going to go around with the person closest to me first. Introduce yourself. Who are you? Are you a mentor or mentee? Where are you? And then we'll kind of go to the next person. So let me start with Magdalene. We'll start with you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Magdalene, and I'm a product manager for Wells Fargo, and I am in San Francisco, and I'm a mentee.
Excellent. And Jordan, just a quick intro.
I'm Jordan Bergtraum. I'm one of the mentors in the program paired with Sean Raftery, and I'm in New York, if I didn't already said that. I don't think so. And this is one of my many sessions that I've been doing this, and currently doing product management consulting.
Excellent. And Joni?
Hi, everybody. This is Joni Hoadley. I'm based in Santa Barbara, California, so it's bright and early here, but the sun is up. I am a software product management consultant, and I'm also a mentor. Coffee hasn't kicked in yet. A mentor with the program this session.
And Hannah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm in New York. I'm a mentee in the program, and my mentor is Patrick Kaufman. And I am a product owner at PWN Health.
Excellent. And I am Jeremy Horn, aka the Product Guy, and I'll be moderating here today. So as we go through, as the mentor gives their talk, at any point in time, just post your questions to the chat. If you're joining us on YouTube, the chat is along the bottom of the video, or as well as if you go to theproductmentor.com/live, on the top of the screen, you'll see this lovely video. Along the bottom, you'll see a chat. And in the chat is where you can post your questions. And in fairly real time, I'll pass those along to Jordan to get you answers. Now, if it's a broad question, what is product management? Why am I here? Who are you? We will still answer those questions for you. I'll just save those for the end. But the things that are topically related, I'll pass along to Jordan in fairly real time. I usually wait for him to catch his breath or wait for that good moment to interrupt him, or maybe more just to make it more interesting. So with that all said, let's get it going. Let me hand it over to Jordan to begin today's talk on protecting your roadmap from influential clients. Jordan?
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. So I'm going to begin with a little bit of a background on me so you can appreciate where I'm coming from, because not every product manager has the same experience, and I think it is quite relevant to understand a little bit of their experience so you can appreciate some of the things I'm going to tell you about and the lens through which I am coming from, because I think that will influence the content that you're about to hear. So I have over 10 years of B2B SaaS experience as a product person, almost all of those, or at least a vast majority, in even the enterprise B2B space. So I do want you to keep that in mind, that I am not coming from, for example, the consumer world. It's in my mind, a very different world from what I've learned in talking to product people in that world. So that's going to definitely color some of my thinking on product and this topic in particular. 7 of those years have been leading product functions, both the portfolio of products and teams of people and the mentorship and team development that comes with that. I've been all over the map in terms of verticals that have almost no relationship to each other, from education to legal, pharma, and even facilities management, of all things. Twice, I've introduced the product management function to companies being the product, and that has its challenges to come in and prove value for the product function and then build teams around that value prop. My scope of responsibility has ranged depending on the role, but I've been responsible for market research, outbound product marketing, product design, product delivery, project management, UX. All of those functions at one point or another have been under my umbrella. So I want to set just a very simple expectation on what hopefully you'll be getting from this presentation today. And it's fairly straightforward in terms of its objective. I want to put you in a position that you'll be better able to maintain your roadmap by preventing your influential clients from altering that roadmap through many different mechanisms they may have of doing so. But when you know what they're asking for and your heart and mind is not roadmap worthy, and you don't want to put it on your roadmap because you don't believe in it enough to put it on your roadmap, what do you do? How can you prevent that and handle those situations? But I also want to start with a little bit of a reality check because we all live in the real world. So first thing, keep in mind that your boss and your leadership, they're the boss. And if they come to you and tell you that it is their opinion or even fact in their mind that you need to add something to the roadmap, I'm not going to tell you that you should be telling them absolutely not, no way. No, that's not what I'm saying here. However, I do think there are times where when it's not your boss or the client themselves, that there are ways to talk people out of changing your roadmap just because they think so. So in the event, though, that it is your boss or your leadership and someone at the C-level who's saying, I think we need to add this to the roadmap, there are things you could do. You could first ask them before we do so, can you allow me to research that idea before we do so? I want to go talk to some customers. I want to talk to our sales function, our customer success function, and see what they think, and then take that information and circle back with them being your, the leader, the boss, to maybe try to talk them out of it because you now have some facts and data to support why it might not belong on the roadmap. But the point here is I'm not suggesting you put your job at risk just because you think you're right. It's just not worth it, because think of it this way. If you have a great roadmap and you believe in it, but you get fired, you cannot defend that roadmap. So that's not fruitful. Okay, tip number one when it comes to being able to defend a influential client's request is you have to have a roadmap in the first place. Now, I know that sounds obvious, but I've, especially in my consulting life, come across a number of organizations that don't really have a roadmap. And that's a problem simply because without a roadmap, it's much easier for anyone to come in and change your roadmap because you don't have one. And unless it's well documented and socialized, it's almost like it doesn't exist. So in the absence of a plan, they'll set the plan for you very easily. They'll just say, oh, well, this sounds awesome to me. I think you should do it. And keep this in mind that your customers will ask for anything they want. It is not their job to ask for the absolute best thing that is in front of them or you. So they will come at you with plenty of good ideas, but there's nothing to say that that good idea is a great idea, and that even next level, that it's a roadmap worthy idea. So keep that in mind, that they're just going to come at you with ideas, and it's your job to determine whether that idea truly belongs on your roadmap. And what I've found with some, rough math, I'm not saying this is an exact science, but about 80% of the time, when even a very large, influential, high-paying customer comes to me with an idea, 80% of the time, if I were to say to them, hey, here's our current roadmap, are you thinking that this idea is better for you than the ideas we already have on this roadmap? But 80% of the time, they actually say no. They look at what we've already had it planned and say, oh, no. Actually, please deliver on that. Those are some fantastic ideas. This was just an idea I recently heard from wherever, and I just wanted to talk to you about it. But no, this is not a roadmap derailing idea. Stay the course. So the second you have a roadmap and show it to them, my point is that they will likely agree with you that your well-researched, well-documented roadmap is a better plan. So tip number 2, have a roadmap process.
So before you get to that, we've got a question. I think it's from Hannah. Let me hand it over to Hannah. Ask her question.
Hi, I was just curious. So we're working with a number of clients, and often it's quite difficult to prioritize. So how do you recommend prioritizing client requests?
Okay, so that could be a talk in and amongst itself that I could consume an hour with. So I'm going to try not to do that. Here's my short answer. It's a combination of art and science, of course, and we'll say it's 50% of both. It's the science that I think is the most important part, because that can certainly influence it to the point that it's not just all art. So I believe in having advisory boards of, let's say 8 to 12 influential clients and turning their feedback on prioritization into actual data. So you ask all, let's say 10 of those customers about prioritization of various ideas you have. And then you could simply average all that together. So you have a good starting point of hard data that is very challenging to argue with from that data perspective. So that's one thing I have done many times. And then even once you have your roadmap, when new ideas come in, it's the same exercise with that advisory board. Oh, you think this is a new roadmap idea? Where? Where exactly do you think it belongs? Is it the new number 2? Is it the new number 5? And again, you just are evolving your roadmap through that mechanism of using at least the data coming from existing customers. Now, that's not enough. Also factor in what your sales function thinks. Do they think it belongs on the roadmap? You can go through the same type of cycle with a couple of key and intelligent salespeople in your function about, do you think it's roadmap worthy and where? I also think your client success function can also help with do the same thing. Now, but at the end of the day, it's also art, because you're going to get different answers from different people, right? What your current customers, your client success, and your sales function tell you very well could look different. And that's where the art comes in, where you as a product professional and what you know about the marketplace and the conversations you've also had with some really, really smart people come into effect, and you have to merge those different sources into a singular final roadmap. And that's why that's not an easy thing to do, and why it could be an hour-long conversation. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, so I don't just consume the world.
Got it. Thank you so much.
So it's a good question. Keep them coming in. Keep them posting to the productmentor.com/live or the YouTube channel. With all that said, I'll keep passing them along to Jordan, and back to you, Jordan.
So tip number 2, have a roadmap process. And what I mean by that is, it's one thing to be able to show the roadmap. It's next level smarts to be able to explain to anyone that asks, especially an influential customer, how you got to that roadmap, right? Lists are great. Lists of ideas are great. But it's easy to challenge that list if all it is a list of opinions. But without a my point is, no, as I wrote here, no process, very hard to defend that roadmap. All it is a list of opinions without explaining how you got to it. And also a thing to talk through with your existing customers, and also anyone that might ask, is that you're building a platform, and not platform in the technical traditional sense. I just meant consider you're building a solution for a marketplace, not one customer at a time. What that means is any one individual customer may not be getting their absolute favorite idea off the roadmap, but theoretically, they'll be very happy with many of the ideas on the roadmap. And that still breeds a sense of happiness out of them, because they're getting a lot of good things. But it's better than you trying to keep one customer happy with their idea at a time. And that's part of your thinking. That's part of your road mapping process, is you're building that roadmap for an entire marketplace, meaning 100 customers that you might have, 150, and maybe it's only 7. Still, it doesn't matter. Once you have multiple customers, you're in a position where you can't just be trying to make one customer happy at a time and scale. It's just not effective for your organization, your company. It's also not effective for your existing customers to try to do that. Trust me, I've been there. It just doesn't work. What happens is you land up making nobody happy when you try to make one customer happy at a time. And that your roadmap is based on facts and data. Some of the things I was just talking about answering that previous question. And it's not just a roadmap based on opinions. Because the problem with opinions is if that's all you're coming with into a road mapping meeting with anyone, an influential customer or your C-level folks, or even some peer in the client success function, if all you have is your opinion, opinions are easy to argue with. And if you're talking with someone that has a bigger title than you, the only opinion that's going to matter in that room is whoever has the biggest title. So that's why you definitely want to be coming to this conversation with facts and data so you're in a position to defend that roadmap. Tip number 3. So now that you have a roadmap, now that you have a process, the next level and key is you got to be transparent about that process. Because if people don't know you have a process, what good is it? So things like people should understand, from who do you get your input from? How do you go about assessing the value of the individual items that are on your roadmap? What is value to you? What is value to your customers? And I can't answer that. It depends on a lot of things. But what I'm saying is you should be able to articulate to anyone that asks, what is the value metrics that you're using for the items that are on your roadmap? How do you go about collecting the data that you're using? What is your method? Like I said, you have an advisory board. Are you surveying clients? Which maybe you even want to talk about, and you got to be careful with this though, which clients you're collecting data from. Often I don't talk about that because my advisory board is not necessarily a publicly known entity, because then everyone starts to ask to be on it. And I don't want every customer on my advisory board. It's usually a hand-selected group. So that's why you want to be careful about the who do you get data from. And also be very transparent about the fact that there may be items on the roadmap that are designed to be for customer acquisition, not existing customers. That's okay. I think they will appreciate the fact that you are in business to make money. Part of that is doing things that are for acquiring new customers, and that might not be about keeping existing customers super happy, but that there are certainly plenty of items on the roadmap that are for existing customers. Tip number 4, try to get the backing of your leadership on this idea of helping you not let influential clients derail the company's roadmap or your roadmap, but that should be one and the same. You and the company should be on the same page. So the idea here is hopefully have intelligent conversations about your leadership backing you up such that they are empowering you and not overriding you. And overriding you in the sense that they are often going to want to say yes to customers, even the C-level folks, the CEO, they like to say yes. It feels good to say yes to big customers. They're often, believe it or not, I've met plenty of CEOs that are terrible at knowing how to say no the right way, so they just say yes. Preferably, the way to solve the wanting to say yes problem is ask them to politely say, hey, that's a fantastic idea, but defer to you at the end of the day in the form of, hey, love it. It's a great idea. We've heard that before, but I definitely want to take this to my product function and let them do what they do and research it further. That's all they have to say, and leave it at that. And I found I've done that, had that exact talk track tons of times. And I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, depending on the client, of course, that works. Okay, again, as long as you have a process and a good, strong method, most clients understand that that is a good thing. That just saying yes to everything that they want may feel good at first, but is not the right way for a SaaS business to operate. And they do typically respect that as long as, again, you've got the roadmap, you've got the process, you've got the transparency of them understanding that they should be generally, even when it's you talking, the CEO, anyone else saying, great idea, let me run that through our product function to see if this makes sense for our roadmap. Number 5, and this I actually brought up answering the previous question, is advisory boards. Point is, if you don't have one, I suggest you create one. This is typically, and there are no hard rules on how many members there are. I've typically found that I like to have about somewhere between 10 and 12 members. I've been in a situation where it was easy to attract membership because I've been in the enterprise world where these products were incredibly ingrained into the business process. These are solutions that are super important to our customers. So they would be very happy to be on the board to influence the product because it will just make it better for them. So I found if you have 10 to 12 members, you'll land up on each given meeting, which is usually for me has been a every 2-week phone call as an example of when you meet with them. And about 7 to 8 on average will attend each meeting. And that's a pretty good number for a phone call. All 12 is actually too many, but that's very rare. And I found less than 7 starts to just diminish the amount of feedback you're getting, and it becomes a little less valuable. So I found that sweet spot of, somewhere between 10 and 12 members, closer to 12 in my world for each call. The point is 7 to 8 people. Now, who should be on the board? The whole point of this and advisory boards in relation to this particular discussion is I do recommend including your most influential customers. Now, even when they're not maybe the smartest customers out there, and ideally that's who you really want on your advisory boards, right? Is your smartest, most engaged, most forward-thinking people at your various customers. Absolutely, that's ideal. But sometimes you might take a loud and not the smartest person in the world on your board simply to do a couple of things. You want to expose them to a more democratic method for getting feedback. You want them on the board so they appreciate that, oh, right, direct process. Okay, there's a lot of other customers. Okay, I'm only one of many. And that's what I'm going to talk to you next is by exposing them to the fact that there are other customers, they don't act like they're the only customer. They are regularly in a room with a whole bunch of other people with their own thoughts, their own needs, and it really does remind them that it is not really fair for them to try to bully you into putting their ideas on the roadmap. Because if everybody did that, if every customer was in that position, the whole process would just break down. There would be no roadmap to speak of. It would just be a list of customer demands that very likely are only good for a singular customer that everybody loses, right? You want them to appreciate that. So exposing them to your advisory board both exposes them to process and that they're not the only customer in the world. Last one, and this is actually my favorite you'll see for a number of reasons, but it's also the hardest to actually put into effect, and you'll see why. It's standing up a professional services team to handle these requests. So what I mean by a professional services group is think of a agile team like any other, comprising of engineers, preferably, hopefully QA, a UX person, a product person, and any other roles that you're used to having as part of the team. Those are the classic ones, but there may be people even on the business side that participate in the team, right? Like you might have client success in ways participating in things like UAT, things like, upfront feedback on the design of the product, right? All the normal things. So it is a very typical Scrum team, but they are set aside, for lack of a better word, to work on customer-specific work that you may struggle to keep off your roadmap because it's such an influential client. And you charge for this work. That's a big key, okay? If you don't charge for it, I'm not a big fan of doing this because then it just feels like you're giving away stuff for free, which in my experience usually isn't necessary. I've lived in the world, especially like enterprise scale clients. If you're in that world, they are often willing to pay for something they want that badly. They really are. Not always. And if they're not, how important is it to them, right? If they're not willing to pay for it, think about that. How relevant is it to their world? These are large clients with typically large budgets. Now, the key to this being successful, and this is very important, and I'm a big believer in this, while other professional services are, where customer ABC, who's willing to pay, comes at you with a wild idea, and you just do it, just because they're paying. No, I'm not a fan of that, because you don't want to have the result be a terrible product, or putting things into your product that you know are just wrong. The idea here of this professional services team is they exist to do work on clients' behalves for a fee for ideas that you think are good, but aren't so good that they should interrupt your roadmap. Think of it that way, that they're good ideas. They're maybe even great ideas, things that you would love to add to the product in the world of endless resources. Absolutely, I'd add it to my product. I like it. It's just not going to happen anytime soon because I've got a roadmap full of better ideas. So the beauty of having that process and that line of thought with your professional services roadmap, for lack of a better word, or think of the professional services backlog, is you're bettering your product. You're making it better as well for all customers, not just one. That's the other key to this kind of work, is if it truly is for only one customer and it will only be useful for one customer, again, I don't recommend accepting the work, not even in the professional services group, because you don't want to create a mess of a product for just one customer that no one else will use. I don't believe in that. That's not a good idea. So let's be very clear on how I feel about this professional services team and the type of work they'll do. Or all they're doing is they allow for good ideas to be escalated off of the, let's say, bottom part of the roadmap. Not that that's a bad thing. There are still good ideas to right to the top for this professional services team to work on. And that's the type of work they're doing. So it needs to go through the product management function to make sure that two things. One, that the idea, the problem you're trying to solve is a good one, is a valid one, and you like it. You want to solve this problem. And secondly, you want product management heavily involved so it gets built right. Both typical parts of the product function is what to build and how to build that right. All of that still needs to come into play for all the work going through the professional services group. So just some of the benefits of doing this, that some of which I've already mentioned, but I want to revisit. So this is a way to keep big customers happy, right? They get what they want. They get to escalate some of their ideas to getting done much sooner or getting done at all. So that's a great thing. This also helps you stabilize your company roadmap, right? Instead of that big customer, okay, going way over your head, possibly calling the CEO and saying, hey, Jim, Sally, whomever, you have to do this or I'm leaving, which is a threat they sometimes make. Now, it's usually not true. They will not leave. In my world, they often will not leave because the product is usually so baked into their processes that that would be extremely painful, but you can't take that risk. This allows you to get that work done without interrupting your roadmap, keeps your roadmap, which means your roadmap is more predictable, and even more important, that you're actually delivering on the best ideas for your company by sticking to your roadmap and not having to stop work on a roadmap item to do something for one customer. And at the same time, you're making money. You're increasing revenue, all while keeping big customers happy, stabilizing your roadmap, and you're making money. How bad can that be? Now, this is not the easiest thing to convince your company to start. First of all, if you're really small and you have all of 10 engineers, right? You're at that scale, you're not going to be able to sell standing up a professional services team, simply because you're probably not going to have enough work for a professional to keep a professional services team busy. You don't have enough customers, in my mind, if you're at that scale. You have to get to the point that maybe you have, I'm going to guess, there's no fixed number. It's not like when you get to this point, you definitely do it. But I'm saying when you get to the point that maybe you have like 20 to 25 engineers or more, you could start thinking about this as a potential way to do all those good things. it's an easier sell if also you've lined up a whole bunch of customers that A, have ideas that they want built that are not on the roadmap, and here's the key, that they're willing to pay for. You line up, for example, for a small professional services team of, let's say, 2 engineers, a part-time QA, part-time UX, and some product coverage, and you say to yourself, I can keep that team busy for a whole year with work that I know customers have been very clear to me are willing to pay for. That's a good start. That's compelling to leadership to say, really, you got enough work, so that's new revenue. We build more, we enhance our product, we make our product better, and we're going to keep our existing customers happy. Okay, and we can keep this team busy for a whole year. That's a good sign. Like, that's how you'd sell it. You want to make sure you covered those, bases of making money, keeping the team busy, right? And keeping customers happy. Now, you may get the question, well, what happens in the future if this professional services team does not have enough work? What if the demand for customer specific, and I hate saying customer specific, we'll call it customer escalation work slows to the point that there just isn't enough of it? Well, that's an easy thing to solve. You can easily just take the professional services team for a sprint or 2 or 3 or 100 theoretically and have them work on core roadmap work. We're never short of work in the SaaS world. There's always more backlog work than there are resources to tackle it. So no one can ever say, oh, they'll go idle. Okay, no, not true. They can always shift over, assuming they're cross-trained enough on the product to go work on something on the backlog that is, the next big win for on the backlog to go work on. Or they can work on technical debt. They can help with defects. I mean, there's just a never-ending amount of work for them to tackle in the event the professional services work slows. So I've downloaded you now with a ton of info, and I always like to end with a summary so you guys can kind of focus on what the takeaways or what my points are in one singular slide. So first, going back, you have to have a roadmap. Without a roadmap, it'll be very, very difficult for you to tell an influential client, hey, that's a great idea, but right now I think we've got better ideas we should work on. Because they're going to say, oh, what are those ideas? And if you can't simply bust out a roadmap that shows here are great ideas, you're just going to have a tough time deflecting their idea at that point. Second, make sure you also have a process. It's one thing to have that list. It's another to be able to explain to them how the list was generated. Also, remember to be transparent about that. Don't just say you have a process. Be fair with them and tell them the details of what that process looks like, who you're talking to, how you're assessing value, right? How often you talk with them, and how even things like, oh yeah, we look at things when it comes to value, like how often does this problem happen? And when that problem happens, who does it influence? And when that problem happens, what does it cost you per incident? And that's one way we get to value from a cost perspective to our clients. I'm a big fan of having an advisory board to influence that roadmap and to also have that advisory board as a way of bringing influential clients into a more democratic process and exposing them to the fact that you have many clients, not just one. And lastly, I'm a big fan of potentially standing up a professional services team as a way of accepting a customer demand while making money, keeping them happy, and building up the capabilities of your product. Thank you. And that concludes my presentation.
Awesome. That was great. That was great. And also, I'd like to thank our speaker, Jordan Bergtraum, for today's topic on how to protect your roadmap from derailment from influential customers. And as always, the presentation will be posted on our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, and to everyone else who joined us today on the Product Mentor. And also, don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like today's speaker, Jordan, to product people of all sorts, all around the world, please visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. And also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own, it's free for everyone, job board at theproductjobs.com.